Unscripted, unshackled, uncouth.
What you're about to hear is for more mature audiences only.
It's Miguel and Holly Uncensored.
Hello and welcome to Miguel and Holly Uncensored. This is our off-air podcast that we do 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Don't forget, we have a whole Facebook page, if you're still on Facebook, where you can go and have discussions about things you heard on the podcast or on the show. So on Facebook, just type in Miguel and Holly fam /platypus posse. Any of those sort of variations will get you to the page.
Yep.
And so you can go like that, be in it. And also don't forget to check out the Miguel and Holly YouTube channel, where I've been also secretly uploading YouTube shorts for different things that we do.
Oh, like what we do on Instagram?
But a little bit different. So just another way for you to partake into all things Miguel and Holly. We're talking about one thing and one thing only on today's podcast, and that is the commencement speech heard round the world over the last couple of days. But before we get into that conversation, someone texted in because we talked about this on the show this morning, but it was a short version of the conversation we're going to have today because we were on the air.
Right.
Someone said relevant info for the podcast discussion later. Today happens to be National Break the Glass Ceiling Day.
Well, would you look at that?
Wait, hold on. I love Doe Eye. She said, I'm already angry.
Oh,
Girl.
She said, I'm already angry.
I've been angry since we did it on.
I like when she writes, "What the fuck?" in caps. Shit's my favorite. I love it.
When Doe Eyes go on, she would go
not
off.
hold back on social media. She will take you fucking down.
It'll be 6:30 a.m.
Yes.
She will write a what the
Yes.
With her whole chest.
The whole chest. There it is. Yep. Yes. Yeah.
All right. So the discussion that we had on the show this morning and what we're going to talk about today is the football player from the Kansas City Chiefs who gave a commencement speech at is it Benedictine College? Did I say
That's where I read. Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah. There it is.
right there.
Benedictine College. Yeah.
It is a conservative Catholic college, I believe. I was trying to do some more research on it after, but we've been so busy this morning. But I just grabbed a TikTok. This is a response. So those of you that are listening to this won't be able to see, but there's a TikToker who took the footage of the commencement speech, and then she has herself, so her face over it, and then she makes little comments in words. So you won't be able to see it, but that's not relevant to our conversation. But just for those of you that are watching on Facebook and YouTube, so you know what's happening. Here is Harrison Butker at Benedictine College this past weekend.
For the ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
I just want to say thank you, Harrison, for that very motivational speech. I am moved. I actually had no idea that my life began when I met my husband. It did not begin when I graduated magna cum laude from the University of Georgia with honors. Certainly did not begin when I graduated with a 4.0 GPA, Alpha Omega Alpha from medical school. And I had no idea that it did not begin when I went to Duke and completed my residency in neurosurgery. No, it began when I wifed up and met my husband. Thank you, Harrison. Thank you for really understanding every part of our being as women.
Oh.
Oh!
I didn't know that was.
Oh, that was the end. That was the zinger.
I can't.
So obviously before Kelvin and I jump into it, Holly, as a mom who is married, but who also has a very successful career, did your life begin when you got married and you walked down the aisle to your ex-husband?
I mean, according to what that man says, yes, it did. I finally made something of my fucking self.
Under his eye.
Under his eye. May the Lord open.
May the Lord open.
Blessed be the fruit.
All right. Now that I had that out of my system, I want to point out a comment that was made on Facebook by Teresa. She said, because to give you a little context, we did talk about this on our show today, on the on-air show, and there was a text message that said, just to provide some context, he was speaking at a conservative Catholic university. Okay. And so Teresa says, I agree with a caller during the show that he was at the Catholic college. The old school Catholicism is that women get married and have babies. I was told by a priest during Sunday school that I belonged home barefoot and pregnant when I was older. So that was Teresa's message. And as a quick side tangent about Catholicism, because if for those that don't know, I was raised Catholic. I was very involved, and my mom only became more Catholic as she got older, if that's possible. I think a lot of people do, actually, interestingly, as they get older, they get more invested in the church. I read a very interesting article, and no, this wasn't a TikTok that I'm saying was an article. I read a full ass article on AP News because the little notification came across my plate on Sunday, and I was like, wait, what? And the article that AP News did on Catholicism was to point out that, interestingly, a lot of younger people are leaving the church, but the ones that are staying are really invested. And so you've got this weird balance of like, what these young people that are staying, what do they want? And when I say young people, I mean like 50s and younger, not like 70s, 80s.
Right.
Younger, 50 years old and younger, who have their own families, and they're bringing them to the church. And not all Catholic churches, but some Catholic churches in the country are doing an about-face pivot and saying, you know what? We have gotten a little too loosey-goosey. What is Pope Francis even talking about? And we need to take it back to the roots pre-Vatican II, which happened, I think, in the late 60s or early 70s. I don't remember which. But Vatican II came along, like Pope John Paul II, and they got a little more liberal, and they got a little more, okay, like, we know you're probably on birth control. We're not going to say anything about it, but just show up at mass. Like it just things got a little bit more relaxed. And that's where Catholicism was really thriving in the 70s and 80s. A ton of people were going to church. So it was Catholicism was huge. And so now you're starting to see various parishes across the United States reverting back to pre-Vatican II. And they're like wearing the lace head coverings, and they're like, birth control is a sin. You have as many children as God intends for you to have. Once you are married, anytime you have sex, you should be hoping for a baby with that time. A lot of that really old school stuff. And some of the elder priests who came of age during the liberal years of Catholicism are like, these young priests, man, I don't know. Like there was like a 75-year-old father up in the north somewhere, and he's like, they're just waiting for us to die and turn the whole religion back the way that it was. But there's a lot of call for that for some reason. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out to say that this was probably not anything surprising, given that this is a conservative Catholic university. If it's one of those universities that's trying to go back to the very strict, like Latin masses, those types of things, like you don't eat at all on Sunday before you go to mass. Let alone you don't have breakfast and then wait an hour, like Vatican II said. Like there's no eating until you take the Eucharist. So having said that, I just wanted to share because I just read that. I guess he was in the right place for this conversation, right? Because at first I was like, this is a terrible message to have at a graduation. These women just got through fucking college and they want to go and like use their degree. You're not speaking to the right people. But on further reflection, maybe he was. maybe he was speaking to the right people who are only getting these degrees so that somebody texted in, they can have smart kids.
Mm.
I don't know. But this whole thing is very alarming and, in my opinion, very dangerous. And I was having a hard time putting it into exactly like there's so many points, right, about why it's alarming and dangerous. I in between stuff on the show, I was on Twitter for a hot second, and I found a couple of posts that kind of sum up just different ways in which this is insanely shitty. So let me just kind of read those because it hits close for me. This person, Amanda Getz, on Twitter said, um, let's see. She quoted his speech and said, "This is the programming of so many people," because the programming that this Harrison Butker was talking about, like, these women should be, their lives start when they become a wife and a homemaker and a mother, and that should be your goal, right? So this woman wrote, "This is the programming of so many people. People believe women are here to support men, that our job is to create babies, not companies, not jobs, not anything else for the world, just the future generation of babies." Okay. She goes, "Not be equals. I love being a partner. I love being a mom, but I also love my career and the fulfillment I get from my work. If you've ever wondered what the patriarchy is, it's this programming and this thinking. It causes subconscious hate and disgust for women who don't follow these societal rules and expectations of what a woman should do and should be. I'm sorry for every graduate who had to sit through that and listen to it. Go change the world however you choose."
Mm.
So that hit me. I was like, thank you. That's a good way to sum it up. The other one I wanted to read is this woman, Just Jan, on Twitter. And she said, "I have news for all of the, quote, women shouldn't have a career but should just tend to the children in the home, unquote, folks. In heterosexual married couples, 70% of the time, the man dies first. The average age for a woman at time of widowhood is 59.
Mm.
Not 70, not 75, 59. Without a way to earn for herself and possibly her children, she is financially at risk. According to Social Security, I think that's what this is, the greatest risk factor for a woman in America is to fall below the poverty line, is to be widowed. I have 3 children and stayed home for many years to care for them. While I don't regret that, it definitely put me in a difficult position when I was widowed at age 48 with a short work history in a sector that didn't pay well and was not stable. Thankfully, I was able to go back to school, but not all widows are so fortunate. Education and training provide women with choices. Having choices empowers any individual. We should desire autonomy, empowerment, and security for any person we love. We don't know what life will hand us. We all will not marry. Divorce and death are realities. Beyond practical concerns, women are not monolithic. We have many different talents. We bring unique gifts to the world. We deserve to be able to have a purpose and find meaning beyond family roles. Our lives matter. Our desires and needs matter. Studies show that when women flourish, society does well. Conversations where the needs of others are always centered over the women who are doing the caregiving are dehumanizing. Women flourish when they are empowered with the ability to have choices over their life. And so those were the two that I really wanted to bring to the podcast because I didn't want to just get on here and rant, and because I'm angry. Like, it just makes me really angry that what all of this, I guess, to boil it down, is saying women who don't get married and don't have babies are not of value. The only value women bring to any society is to cater to men and have men's children and care for them. And that if a woman doesn't do those things, can't do those things, whatever, she's disposable. And so it's dangerous to me to go back to that. It's dangerous because it's putting an entire sector of humanity at a disadvantage and less than. And so what you've got is a lot of it comes from religious people, religion, that there's a hierarchy and that the man is here and then the woman and da.
Love thy neighbor unless it's a woman.
Well, yeah. Love thy neighbor unless a lot of things.
Yes.
But to take away women's choices and opportunities and empowerment is to just like we're just going back and people are like, oh, the good old days. No, women died in abusive marriages. Women couldn't own property. Women couldn't pay for things without the help of a man. Like women had zero rights as humans because all they were meant to do was just to find a man. Hopefully you find a good one and beat the shit out of you or treat you as garbage or whatever. And so it's so dangerous to me that we're starting to see some of this rhetoric about how you be quiet, little lady. We know your life begins when you're serving us men. And aren't you so beautiful? You've allowed me to live my dreams. It's real shitty. It's real shitty and it's fucking dangerous.
I think that is the problem with when we talk about like Ron DeSantis and other Republican-led states that want to, get books out that deal with anything that's uncomfortable or anything that, cast a cis straight white male in a bad light.
Right.
And they're just want to gloss over it. And they're like, look at these beautiful row homes that we had after the war when everyone came back and, women were back in the house cooking and taking care of kids. And look at the divorce rates. They were so down and everything was perfect and people had respect and people could pay for things with one income and everything was so fantastic. Okay. If we're looking at, any of those movies from back in the day, that is the pretty glossy Life magazine cover.
And some people I'm sure did have that and were happy with that. Like,
But
I'm not
not
going to say they didn't.
a lot, but not a lot of people, because
No.
then when you actually walk into that house on a Tuesday at 9:00 and you see that your granddad was beating your grandmother or he was off at the hotel after work sleeping with other people, and so now you're doing 23andMe, and look at that, you have some uncles and aunts that you didn't know about because your mom or your grandmother was so fucking sad that she didn't have her own purpose outside of the home, that she was fucking taking pills.
I was just about to say pills and alcohol.
That's when all that shit went up back in the day. So it's like, yes, if you look at the glossy cover of what it looked like back then, oh, it looks so respectable and fun. But when you look at what it looked like on a day-to-day basis, it was not fun for women. Now, if you happen to like live in a house where things were great, that's fine.
That's what I'm saying. Like, of course, I'm sure it happened in some circumstances. Everybody was very happy with their roles.
Right. But I think what just bothers me about these sort of movements, and especially, and if you are religious and you're a Christian or Catholic or whatever, I will always respect your religion. And that's good for
religious.
you. I did. I grew up religious. And so I have someone in my life very important to me that is atheist and does not believe, but he actively thinks that religion is bad for people. And I see where he's coming from his perspective and from his story, why he thinks that way. But for me, I see the good that it can do. But I think the problem that I continue to have with these religions that are, putting this message out there now is that they're trying to devalue any way that other people think. If you want to go to a conservative Catholic school, or if you want to go to Bob Jones University, or you want to go to BYU with the Mormons and do that thing, wonderful. If that's the path you want to take, and hopefully you've, looked out to see if, you want to go the other route. But if you choose to go that route, good for you. I'm happy.
Because it's your choice.
Absolutely. But the problem that I have is that you have this homeboy giving this commencement speech to these people at this college. And then what's happening with some of these religious political organizations is that their goal is to make the government and to make all of this apply to everyone.
Yes.
To everyone. And so that's the problem that I continue to have with these sort of stories that come out. It's like, if you want to choose that life, wonderful, get it. I'm so happy for you. Actually, I'm not happy for you, but if that's what you want to do, I respect your decision as a consenting human being to go down that path. But don't try to push it on other people. And don't try to make people feel bad if they want to go a different route and do something different.
And also, they don't like the idea of the word choice.
Right.
No,
it's expected role.
Right.
Yeah. Because they're not happy with the people that aren't making that choice. And so their goal is to make everybody feel like that's the choice.
Exactly.
Right. And so that's what just is just insane to me that, I mean, like we said, we know it was a religious college and that, maybe the people there, because you don't hear anybody booing, you don't hear anybody getting up and walking out, or maybe we'll see videos, as when things like this reach a critical mass on social media, then we'll maybe see other perspectives of videos and maybe someone did walk out or maybe someone did boo, but it didn't sound like anybody. You just heard babies crying in the background.
Right.
But like, if that's your, because I had a girl that I worked with at my college radio station at Georgia Southern, who her whole like joke, but not joke because it happened. And she was like, I'm here to get my BS in journalism and I'm here to get my MRS. Her literal goal was to get a degree and to find a husband. And she did both of those things. And so, but good
Way to
girl.
meet your goals.
And you know what? They're still married. They're still happy. I know both of them. And it worked out well for her.
Right. Because that is some women's goals.
Absolutely.
What I didn't like about this commencement speech is that man said, who's calling me? Get off my phone. That man said that he would venture to guess that most of the women in the audience were, or maybe he said the majority of the women were most excited to be a wife and a mother. Like, I don't know if that's accurate. Maybe for that exact place, maybe yes, it was. But if we're talking about all women, that's not accurate.
The even when we started this podcast, it's so funny for me to hear like, a conservative religious university, because deep down, if truly you believe that women should just be homemakers, then why the fuck are you offering college courses to women?
Well, that's
just a money grab. What's the point?
Yes, but I also think that's the scary next step. Because if you think about it, you're like, well, they're just going to keep slowly. It's like the frog in the pot of water, like, oh yeah, come get your education. And then eventually the more that shit turns around, the more it's going to be like, well, we don't really see a need for women to be in this. So, and the women are brainwashed and they're like, no, we don't need it. You men figure it out. Like, it's that so many people are like, why is Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale? How did it accurately portray, weirdly, what seems to be happening, even though it came out, like the book came out in the 80s? And she said, because I've studied history, it's cyclical. This is what happens. And that's why I say it's so dangerous, because just for one of many reasons, like that lady on Twitter said, you get to be 59, your husband dies. Now what? He better have had a couple $1 million life insurance policy so that you're taken care of. If not, you're fucked.
Or even then, like when you think about, like, ask your grandmother, this from back in the day, that like if they were a homemaker, like what did they do after the kids left for the home and they left college? And like, that's the thing when you really dig down and you start to learn history, and you see that like we hit that sweet spot where like before the Industrial Revolution, like everyone worked the fields, they worked the farm, everybody was contributing because you just had to work the farm just to make a living.
Everyone had to work, yeah.
Right. But then once we had technology where it's like, all right, you don't have to be in the fields all day and you're literally just at home, parenting, and you're raising your kids and you're cooking and you're cleaning and you're running the errands, and then your kids go off to school, and then you're like, what? Then what? That means usually, because I was actually listening to a podcast about sort of these TikToker or Instagram influencers and TikTokers that are doing the triad or whatever,
the trad wife movement,
and how they're saying that like it's also very lonely and isolating, because like, let's say you went to college and then, towards the end of college, you met this guy and he's into that. And you're like, well, I can be into that. And then you totally get into it. And then your friends from college, your women friends that you had, went off and had their careers and they're working, but then you stayed and you raised the kids, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not bashing that at all. But then like you get to a point to where you just get so separated and so isolated that it's just you and the kids. And then once the kids go away, do you think they're going to stay at home, or they're going to keep calling you every day to check in on you and see how you're doing?
Right.
Maybe you do expect that.
Right.
And then maybe you expect those kids, those daughters, to start having their own kids so that you can then be a grandparent so something can fill your life.
It ain't gonna happen.
If that's not the case, you really are left with what's my purpose now?
Right. And that's why when you watch any of the shows that sort of really do a deep dive into what happened back then, you can see that, like in Mad Men, if you watch with Betty and Don Draper, where there's a whole arc in one of the seasons where she's taking pills and going to a therapist and they're trying to figure out why she's so sad. Why she's so sad. She was bored because she had no purpose. She had no purpose in life.
Yeah.
Once your kids grow up and they go, like, what are you doing? So it's like, so even if you want to do that and you want to do that traditional housewife, because I just want to reiterate that I'm not bashing anyone that wants to do that if that's the choice you make, but just think about what happens after the fact. I'm always a big person of like, let's go down this, let's tug at this string and then let's see what it leads to if
I'm
you
sure
go down
they'd have
this
an
path.
answer for you though. Like I'm sure they'd have an answer, and the answer might include grandchildren or
Right.
continuing to care for that grown child or be helpful in the church, or there's some answer. I don't think the people that are doing that are that worried, maybe until they get to that point.
I'm about to say, I don't think they are. I don't think that they're thinking about that. But that's why I'm a person that always likes to pull on thread of things to see where does this lead to? I mean, how much advice do we give on the show? And I'm always like, girl, let's think about
the end game.
Think about the end game. Where is this going to lead to? Where is this going to lead to? And I'm just scared for you.
I know. And well, that's the thing. I mean, my mom now, my fiance and I have therapied ourselves to death on this particular topic. We like to just armchair therapist ourselves. But when I was about probably 10 or 11 is when my parents got divorced. So my mom giving me this advice, and of course I didn't put it in this lens at the time, not until way later, but it was around that time that my mom had, for some reason, sat me down with a very serious talk that was like, listen here, a relationship, getting married, that is a bonus. What you need to do is you need to have a career and you always be able to support yourself. Never depend on anybody else. You have to be able to support yourself. And I mean, clearly that was, I don't remember a whole lot. Like when people are like, oh, what was the best advice your mom gave? I'm like, I don't even remember stuff. I'm sure there was a lot down.
Eat a chicken wing before a date.
Eat a chicken wing before a date. So you got some in your stomach. That was one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of random things, but like that one really stuck with me about, like, it really shaped my thinking. She was like, it wasn't an option that I would go to college. It was just, we will figure it out and you will go to college because you are getting a career and you're going to be whatever. That comes first, she said. Which now that I think about it is so funny because she went back so far to like old school Catholicism that by the time she was starting to lose her mind a little bit, she told me that she was so mad at me that I didn't have way more kids. And I was like, Mom,
like,
I didn't want those many kids. She's like, you could have had a couple more. I'm like, oh. Anyway, that was a fight that we had later on because she really did. She changed as well as she got older. But at that time, and especially because she was going through a divorce, she was like, probably like, listen, this ain't happening to my daughter, because she was a stay-at-home mom when I was born. You know, she was she did have a small job in the insurance field, I think when she and my dad first got married. But as soon as she got pregnant, stay at home was the life for her. She wanted that. She wanted to be a mother so badly. Like that really was my mom's calling in life. So I can understand it from some people's point of views. Like,
absolutely.
it's what you want, right? And that's what she did. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she was just the happiest, and she loved having a little baby, me. And then when my brother came along, like 8 years later, she was overjoyed. And then when she and my dad, it was like real rocky. They had decided they were getting divorced. It was I think that divorce changed the course of her health and her entire life, because she was just planning on being a wife and mother for the rest of time. She did not plan on what all went down betwixt the two of them. And the fact that she might want, or they both might want, a divorce. She didn't plan on that. Her plan was to be a stay-at-home mom and just care for everyone. She just wanted to care for people. So then when she was getting divorced and realized my literal entire dream and future is shattered, she told her daughter, me, you can't do this. I can't. This is too devastating. You can't. And so I grew up thinking, I'm not trying to depend on anybody. Hell no. Nope. No. And so for the people that are saying, oh, just get you a husband, he'll just be the provider and the protector. You think? Like, are you
Mhm.
absolutely 100% sure that nothing bad is going to happen with that relationship ever? Ever? Because no one plans for that. Obviously, they don't want that to happen, but that man could leave you. That man could die. That man could start to
Murder
become
you.
an alcoholic and start
Mhm.
beating the kids. Like, there's so many things that could happen by you placing all of that full trust and faith that your entire life is going to be provided for by this one man. It could become too much for him, even if he was on board at first, and he could have a mental breakdown because it's
Mhm.
too much to ask one person to take on that entire role, and he loses it. Then what? Like, there's so many then what questions. That's why I say it's dangerous. Like, you are putting your life literally in someone else's full hands. And, like, maybe that speaks to me and my lack of trust in men. Maybe. And, like, listen, I've been to therapy about that too. I have a female therapist, by the way. So maybe that's on me. But also, what if it happens to you? And so I'm not saying like you shouldn't want to do that. But that's why you should go to college, so that you've at least got some skills, or go to a trade school, or have some sort of thing in which you can understand how to provide for yourself and any kids should you have them. You shouldn't be fully helpless and dependent on someone to survive, I think. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
As I say, trust no bitch.
Oh,
Trust no bitch.
I feel like your mother said that.
Yeah, I don't think that was you.
I don't think that was you,
That was Miss
bitch.
Angela.
You'd be trusting someone.
Oh, girl, I trust when it comes to friends, but not with my life, girl. Honey. Well, hopefully you got listening some interesting perspective. If you think a different way, we'd love to hear from you. If you're like, hey, I sat through and I listened to you all speak, and if you think otherwise, we'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have a different perspective.
Yeah.
If that's where you're coming from. So you can always reach out. You can email me, Miguel at iHeartMedia.com. Sorry, they just showed somebody's feet on Hoda and Jenna. And I was like, why they got someone's hooves on the TV screen like that? And it was like the whole screen.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Producer Kelvin, what is your social media people can find you?
At Kelvin Live, TikTok, Twitter, but honestly, I just use Instagram, to be quite honest.
Kelvin, would you be a housewife if you could?
Honestly, I was thinking about it during this conversation, and I was like, man, if I do have kids, I think I would want to be a stay-at-home dad.
You would not. You don't even want to leave the house for work, girl. You don't want to leave the house
No,
for
it's good.
food. Bitch, you want to be at home. You don't want to go nowhere.
Cozy.
Cozy.
The laundry's there.
Listen,
I'm baking
not
something.
saying there's not an allure, okay?
Here's your iPad. I talked about this with Holly. I said for a month or two, I think I would like it. I think after a while, I'd be like, all right.
All right, what's next?
Yeah.
God, no, I couldn't. Like, I can do a weekend at home by, with Abe and I or by myself, but I couldn't be a stay-at-home dad. I could not. I'm too wily.
It's not
It's not
for
for me.
everyone,
I
but
wanna
that's why
see
there's
it.
choice.
No, it's not. I would be beating them kids from here to kingdom come, girl.
Well, no, wait a minute. Okay, first of all, you're not gonna beat no kids. I will not let you beat no kids.
No, I say that in the sense of how black families say it back, and they're like, "I'm gonna beat your ass if you don't sit down."
But they did though.
My mom did. My mom, she got a big bark, but she only bit once or twice. She barked a hell of a lot, girl, but she only bit twice.
Yeah.
Holly, what's your social media?
Radio Holly on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of those things,
Mine is at Miguel Fuller. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Be Real, and Peloton. We will see you all on Friday. Bye.